Donald Trump is doubling down on his claim that Democrats committed sedition, though the White House has clarified he doesn't want to kill these Democrats. The punishment for sedition, the penalty, is up to 20 years, and I believe it's a $250,000 fine. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Democrats are now admitting, those who made that video, Slotkin in particular, that Trump actually hasn't issued any illegal orders as far as we can tell. So what is the game that is currently happening? I call it, and many of you know this already, but for those that don't follow all of my videos, the Tweedledee, Tweedledum threats. That is, you can't explicitly call on the military to defy Donald Trump. That would be sedition. And you can, however, try and finagle your way through this by breaking apart your statements. Let me use the example of death threats and imminent threats. This one's a really easy example. These individuals, the Democrats and their activists, are exploiting our goodwill to foment unrest, revolution, or civil war. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Tim, that's a stretch. Call it whatever you want. Call it normalcy bias. Call it optimism bias. But Charlie Kirk is dead. And whether or not you believe any of the official stories, progressives and leftists celebrated his death. And prominent Democrats said, well, we won't celebrate it, but he was a bad person. Tweedledee, Tweedledum. Here's how they do it. Tweedledee says, I believe that person of particular ideology needs to be killed. Or they'll say, all Nazis, all fascists deserve to die. Must be killed, they'll say. And that's not a crime. It's an opinion. You are not creating a clear and imminent threat nor instructing someone to commit a crime. You're just saying, I think. Then Tweedledum, standing to their right, says, there's a Nazi. So what ends up happening is for someone like Andy Ngo, for instance, they come out and they scream, Nazis must be killed. Then they point at him and say, he's a Nazi. Not a single individual has said that person is a Nazi who must be killed, because that would be a crime. Indeed. Even for Nazis, you can't kill people because of their ideology. You can defend yourself against someone who's threatening your life or great bodily harm. This is what the Democrats are doing now with sedition. It's Tweedledee, Tweedledum sedition. For the past year, they've been claiming that Donald Trump's orders are all illegal. And by they, I mean Democrat politicians, activists, and staffers. They are saying outright, this is illegal. Trump can't deploy National Guard from Texas to Illinois. That's not allowed. And then Slotkin and her ilk make a video saying, you must defy illegal orders. They are creating a perception among people in the military that these orders are illegal, or at the bare minimum, you can be threatened at the state level with legal action. And then Tweedledum says, defy Trump. And then when called out and Trump says it's sedition, they say, all we said was not to follow illegal orders. That's the law. They're hoping that regular people who don't pay attention will not get the full picture. And it works. Because, well, look, I got to be honest with you guys, my friends. As most of you know, I'm a kind of liberal guy, finding myself aligned with the right because of issues like this. I believe that there is a United States, there is a chain of command, there is a president, there is a system we have in place. We want to change it for sure. A lot of problems with our current sitting politicians, but it's largely about restoration, the intention, and applied to a modern context. That is, we don't want corrupt politicians. We want to figure out how to make sure Congress is serving the people and not just generating stock value. But there are other people who want to burn the whole country down. And so for someone like me, I'm kind of like, if you're a conservative or whatever, we probably disagree on policy, but we agree on this country, right? Well, these progressives don't. They want to see it ripped apart and burned to the ground. And so here we are. The Democrats are now admitting it. We've got a post from J.D. Vance. He says, if the president hasn't issued illegal orders, then members of Congress telling the military to defy the president is by definition illegal. Very interesting. Alyssa Slotkin admits Democrats lied about President Trump issuing illegal orders to the military. I'm going to play this video for you. Real quick, though, make sure you go to timcast.com and click Join Us to get in the Discord server because, my friends, we can't do this without you. And I'll let you know, as a member of the Discord community, there's pre-shows, after shows. There's the 6 p.m. Timcast pre-show with our third chair co-host. You don't want to miss it, as well as at 10 p.m. uncensored call-ins from you, our members. But I will just be transparent and be honest. This holiday season It's very difficult to produce content in the news space because people just don't want to pay attention to it. You know, you're hanging out with family, and I don't blame you. But that means there's a split happening. While ad rates typically go up, viewership typically goes down on heavy political content. So we rely on you as members to make sure we have the budget we need to keep producing this content, because if you don't sign up, we can't do this. And I mean that sincerely. So go to timcast.com, click join us, and we'd love to have you. Now, here's the video from ABC. Listen to this.
Let's talk right now. Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela.
So Trump hasn't issued any illegal orders, yet these people all came out and said to defy illegal orders. They said you must. And that's a quote. They said you must defy illegal orders. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we take a scroll down over here, there's a few interesting points, and I think we have. Do I not have them pulled up? Maybe I did. Nope. We got. Where'd he go? I had a tweet from Kyle Kalinske. Well, it's literally right there in front of my face. Look at me. He issues illegal orders every week, and you know that. He doesn't. That's just made up. But this is the point. Tweedledee, Tweedledum. Progressive activists and other politicians have for years claimed that Trump is issuing illegal orders. He is not. Then these other politicians go on TV and say, defy illegal orders. Now, Data Republican says it's quite literally a color revolution. The democracy playbook people like Norma Eisen or Gene Sharp don't like breaking it out into explicit stages because it implies the color revolutions aren't organic. So I had to assemble it from scratch using their own writings. Here are the steps. Pre-election conditioning. Build civic networks, media outlets, youth movements, polling capacity, and legal infrastructure through foreign-assisted NGOs. And they did all that. Election day, deploy domestic and foreign observers, run parallel vote tabulations and exit polls. Discrepancy identification. Frame official results as illegitimate if they diverge from the parallel count. Counter elite activation, support opposition leaders who call for mass protest. Ensure foreign media, NGOs, and governments all declare solidarity. Organize defections among police, military, or intelligence. That's what they're doing. Insist the incumbent concede or be forced out. The counter-elite then assumes office with immediate diplomatic recognition and donor backing. Indeed. Now, here's the funny thing. It certainly doesn't really align with the right, to be completely honest, because while you do have, to a certain degree, youth movements, turning point. You've got media outlets, sort of, with right-wing media. You don't have civic networks at all. You don't have legal infrastructure, and you don't have foreign NGOs. You have some domestic observers, but no foreign observers, and no one's doing any parallel tabulations. Republicans have, especially particularly in 2020, framed the results as illegitimate, but not as they diverge from a parallel count. They didn't have that. There were opposition leaders who called for protests, but nothing really happened. Foreign media certainly did not side with Trump. They sided against him. There were no defections among police, military, or intelligence. And the incumbent was never instructed to concede. Trump was trying to. So the point is this. Whenever they claim Trump is trying to stage a coup, it doesn't even fit through this system. It doesn't even apply. Yet, if you look at how the Democrats handled 2016, it certainly does. Very interesting, to say the least, though they lost in 2016. To be fair, I'm not a fan of this because what I think we're seeing with Democrats, this is, I don't want to say organic, but I'd call it emergent, meaning it is dominoes falling over. And I also think it's fair to point out that there are individuals who intend for this to happen, but I don't believe that we are looking at like a group of people who said, hey, we're going to overthrow the United States and we're going to do it this way. I believe we're looking at the liberal economic order, and the U.S. was overthrown probably in the 1950s. And overthrown's probably not even the right way to describe it, taken over in a sense, but it was by its own leaders. And so I'll break it down like this. After World War II, Western powers said, we must create a system of global control to prevent World War III. We don't want this ever again. It's bad for everybody. So they created something called the liberal economic order or the liberal world order. By all means, this is real. You can look this up. The idea was that through trade, commerce, and by creating economic blocks, you would prevent war. Where are we today? The idea was to send our manufacturing jobs to China, a lot of our labor to China. Certain manufacturing would go to Canada and Mexico, and the U.S. would then have all of its young people be college students so they can turn into specialists who manage these systems. The only problem is humans are not blank slates. It doesn't work that way. Some people are dumb. And with all due respect, some people being very dumb, some being very smart, means their capabilities are going to be different, and you can't put all of them into a single box called college and expect all of them to manage systems. They don't have the capability. That means there are many Americans who would make a good living being laborers or working in factories, and that's okay. You listen, everybody, you want to think you're the smartest guy in the room? You're not. I'm not, okay? You got to recognize your limitations. And some people, they're not going to make $1 million going online and complaining and talking about things, but they could make $150K working in a steel plant or aluminum refinery or something like that, or being a tradesman. You don't need to be the smartest guy, but you need to have the perseverance and the hard work. Well, you know what? They gave all those jobs away. And now working class guys and ladies, some of these guys want to drive a truck, are having trouble finding these jobs because they're importing illegal immigrants. They broke the system, burned it down, and they're trying to continue. And I believe it's likely because they don't care for the United States. They're trying to establish a global order. And again, you know what? I'm going to pull this up because then people will be like, this is crazy. Liberal economic order from CFR. What is the liberal world order, says the Council on Foreign Relations? Explore the organizations and agreements that have promoted global peace and prosperity since the end of World War II, as well as the challenges. What are they trying to sell me now? Not interested. The liberal world order faces. After World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, countries sought to ensure the world would never again devolve into such horrific violence. World leaders created a series of international organizations and agreements to promote global cooperation based on a system known as the liberal world order. The U.S. has championed that system, promoting cooperation, blah, blah. You get the point. This is education.cfr.org. By all means, you can argue, yeah, but they're not governments, Tim. Those are just fine, whatever. These are billionaires, millionaires, and corporations that are saying this is what they want to do. Call it a conspiracy, fine, but they write it on their website that they're doing it. So here's what happens. They would see the birthright of the American citizen ripped away, burned down. So Gen Z are struggling. And this stupid, I call it retarded plan, was never going to work. But man, you got to be as dumb as a box of rocks. It was never going to work because you can't simultaneously try to leverage the power of the United States after World War II to control the world's economic system while also breaking down the United States. Are you dumb? It's like arguing I'm going to keep my car together with duct tape while actually filing the duct tape away. What? It's going to break. You're trying to hold it together with duct tape that you're breaking at the same time. And that's where we are today. These people of limited cognitive function, like Slotkin and others that are doing this, aren't smart enough to see a few steps ahead. And you know what? I'll tell you where the real problem happens. By all means, you can create a global hegemonic order and all of these things. It's certainly possible. The United States is large. Empires can exist. The problem is, my friends, you've got the liberal economic order created by a bunch of guys who won World War II. They blew people up and they smoked cigars while drop a bomb on them. I got that Life magazine of the dude who dropped the bombs and he's smoking a cigar. They said, we're going to get a picture of you for the cover of the magazine. Like, I want a cigar when I do it. Yeah, they were real men back then. And these guys didn't have the foresight. You see, they say wealth lasts 3 generations. What happens? This guy has a kid. Not literally this guy, but liberal economic order types have kids. They say, your job is to run this system. They bring them in, but these people don't know how to run a system. But they can do a little bit because they got the mentorship right there. Well, the next generation comes in. We are now at the 3rd generation of those who would be running the liberal economic order. And boy, can they not. They have no idea how to make these things operate. They couldn't predict technology, and it's breaking apart. And it's like we see with big companies. Not every company, but many. Now, some argue that It's not going to break apart. Trump is now largely shifted, to be completely honest. You take a look at Trump's policy over the past few months, and it seems like he gave us 6-7 months of good red meat, and now he's shifting back into, we need H-1Bs, Chinese visas. You know, I'm going to tell you something the Democrats aren't pointing out. Go ask a trucker buddy. Go ask one of your trucker buddies. I'm hearing all these stories. Now that they're pulling the CDLs from these illegal immigrants, there are tons of American truckers who are getting their hours in again. They're getting their contracts. They're making money. And that's interesting. Why am I hearing these stories? I get people messaging us, and I'm like, no, hold on. If you're hurting for the hours, why are they importing these people and giving them these CDLs illegally? They don't need to. The American worker can do it. Cheap wages. Gut, burn down that system, and leave us all wanting. Well, the question, I suppose, is we'll throw it to our friend Robert Reich. I know it's Robert Reich or Reich, whatever. I actually don't know how to pronounce his name, but we'll call it Reich. He sounds like a Nazi. Yeah. Robert Reich says, office hours, are we headed towards a second civil war? And if so, why? He says Democrats and Republicans in Congress have lashed out at each other and are ever more fearful for their own safety. One historian told me that our current political moment parallels the 1850s in the lead up to the Civil War. I completely agree. In fact, I believe we're already past the Fort Sumter moment. That is, Abraham Lincoln's moves on suspending habeas corpus and deploying troops happened before anyone thought a civil war was even going on. I know I say it a lot, but seriously, guys, you know, time to update Windows, it says. What we call polarization, they call sectionalism. And in the 1850s, there was a growing sense that the sections of this country were pulling apart. One study found that half of Americans expect a civil war to happen in the next few years. Indeed. I believe the latest poll is 57%. I don't have it pulled up because we talked about it last week on Timcast Style. 57% of Americans believe a civil war is going to happen. It's really funny. I've been saying it for some time, and I get told that because I'm bringing it up, because of that, it's happening. No, I don't think my middling viewership, it's great. I got a big podcast. Everybody agrees, but not the biggest. Not near the biggest. In fact, I think as a personality, I may be in the top 10, but show-wise, none of my shows are near the top 10. And, I honestly, that could just be because I produce way too much content. But I don't think I'm influencing anybody to do civil war. Certainly not. I think people, as I've long maintained, you want to make money, you want to protect yourself, you want to prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. But the problem is this. Donald Trump is pushing H-1Bs and Chinese visas again. We can't get what we want as the American people. Voter ID is a really great example. If it's like in every single poll, it's like 86%. In every single poll. Yet for some reason, we can't get it. Now, why is that? Even in Democrat jurisdictions. I don't trust Democrats to hold elections, to be completely honest, but you tell me in the comments. Because it makes no sense that people in these areas keep voting for something they claim they don't want. Doesn't quite add up, if you were to ask me. Robert goes on to say, on the other hand, unlike the Civil War of 1861, no particular issue like slavery back then pulls the nation apart. While immigration, crime, abortion, and LGBTQ rights are controversial, none of these seem to elicit the anger and passions that might generate civil war. You know what I just can't stand? I just can't stand the ignorance. There's nothing you can do to break through. This guy has broached the issue of pending civil war briefly for a quick second because it's now become apparent, and that's what really scares me. But for the love of all that is holy, if you just read about Bleeding Kansas, it's not slavery. Slavery was a big issue, but it was not. If the only issue was slavery, there'd be no civil war. And I'll put it like this. Certainly slavery tied a lot of issues together. But the issue of the Civil War, I'll say this. You want to know who started the Civil War, ladies and gentlemen? And I know people are going to get mad. Some liberals are going to be like, I can't believe Tim Pool say that. It was Abraham Lincoln. Indeed. And now some would argue, no, the Civil War started by those who seceded from the Union. I don't think so. The Revolutionary War was not started by the colonies. It was started by the regulars, and it was started before the Founding Fathers signed the Declaration of Independence, about a year before. The revolutionary period and violence had been going on for decades. So what happens? The British regulars went to go seize weapons at Lexington and Concord, and the men there were like, no, you can't have it. Now, no one knows who shot first. They call it the shot heard round the world. But it was the regulars taking the action. If the Crown simply said, we don't care, here's the really funny thing, in fact. The revolution may have never happened if the Crown just backed off a little bit and lowered tensions. So let's take a look at the American Civil War. Abraham Lincoln wins the election. 7 states secede. Some would argue that was the start of the war. I understand the political argument for that, but no one shot each other over this. They simply held the vote and said, we're no longer part of your union. Abraham Lincoln rallied troops, suspended habeas corpus, and dispatched them, and sent them to the South to fight the Confederates. So I'll put it like this. By all means, go ahead and argue the South started the Civil War. I totally get it. I agree that you can view it that way. My point is, Abraham Lincoln ordered troops to go fight, to take control of these states, and force them to agree that they are a part of the Union. That's the point. So the question about the Civil War happening in this country, you need to look at every other Civil War throughout history, and it's remarkable that Robert is so daft. I'm not surprised. Most people wouldn't be. There is no single catalyst in Spain. There is no single catalyst in Russia. It is growing ideological divide that results in 2 factions, not necessarily always 2, but actually disparate factions coalescing and then fighting each other. I say this unto you, my friends. We will see. I'll leave it there. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. More to come throughout the day. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.